Talk Show. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, across the nation, around the world, or wherever you are, sitting in your office, in your car. You're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 141. My name's John Troyer, as always. Here today with Alex Meyer, my co-host, where it's Wednesday, May 18th, 2011. Our topic today, APIs and SDKs. We've got two great guests, two VMware folks on. Steve Jin, who's been around for a while, who you may know from his Double Cloud blog or his work with the Java API, the vCloud and various vCloud stuff. And also Alan Renouf, who just recently moved over from the EMC side of the business to VMware, which is a wholly separate entity. I'll ask Alan what he thinks of VMware operationally versus EMC. Some things work better, some things work worse. We have completely different systems, except for the Outlook GAL, which causes no end of confusion. Anyway, we'll talk to Alan. He's recently joined our tech marketing team to hand up automation, PowerShell, and other good stuff like that. So APIs and SDKs are our topic today, and we should have a good hour. I actually just ran into John Arishid walking on the sidewalk as I walked in here, and we're trying to get together the crew of the new book, Cloud Computing with VMware vCloud Director, that just came out in the last couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll try to get them on next week. John Arishid, Ben Lin, we might get Steve Kaplan and Duncan Epping on. Duncan's in town, so if we could get 3 or 4 of them together, that would be awesome. Anyway, and then I don't know. We're still trying to get the Labs guys in here. I want to get Horizon guys in here. Anyway, if you have other ideas, let me know. We'll try to, we're trying to make a little runway here. And then over the summer there'll be some different news, and our dance card will fill up again. Anyway, let's get moving. Hey, Alex, are you here?
I am here.
Hey, welcome. Well, you're not actually here. You're actually somewhere else from where I am.
I'm actually in Mountain View.
Yeah, well, I'm in Palo Alto. I hear you're going somewhere though.
I am going to the VMware forum tomorrow. Well, the forum is tomorrow. I'm going today.
Okay.
There goes my privacy. Everybody, come in and break into my house.
Yeah. You might as well just check in everywhere now. So you're going down to Anaheim for the VMware forum.
That's right, and I will be live tweeting from sessions and from the show floor. We're going to be doing some videos here and there with visitors, with customers, with exhibitors. We'll try to catch some of the keynote, So you can follow my adventures on Twitter. I'm at VMware Community, and we will also be posting the video once we have it all cut and edited. And stuff.
Cool, yeah. I was in... As you guys know, I was in New York last week, shot some video. Actually, last week's podcast I thought was really good. You should check it out if you didn't listen to it. 2 IT guys from a global law firm, and I just thought the dialogue was really interesting. And maybe we should have some more customers on. I mean, because they could really talk about it. It was really interesting. I mean, a lot of times if it's just VMware talking or we're just talking about products in general, but it was really nice to hear some specific real world scenarios and how they dealt with them. So I was also on InfoSmack this week, so check out InfoSmack number 99 over at theregister.co.uk or wherever it is, the hand that bites IT. It was a fun podcast. I got Mark Farley using SocialCam. If you haven't checked out my SocialCam site, check that out if you want news from the trip. That was actually a lot of fun. I recommend it's worth checking out. I think we're all going to be shooting a lot more video soon. So I'll put up a URL in the chat room. Anyway, so Alex, as always, our new segment, the Week in Virtualization News. Why don't you hear now the news with Alex?
Yes, thank you, John, and hello, everyone in Internet land. Here's the news. Yesterday, we launched VMware Horizon App Manager, which used to be known as My One Login. It's a user-centric management service for accessing cloud applications, and it's the first part of the Project Horizon that we have previewed at VMworld last year. There will be more releases of VMware Horizon, and they will allow people to access a variety of application types, virtual Windows desktops, and data resources, and so on. You can learn more about that at VMware.com, Go Horizon App Manager. And if you want, you can establish an account and you can download the piece of software called the connector at VMware.com, Go Horizon-Manager-Download.
Hey, Alex.
Yeah.
You can also, we just launched a new blog, too, that has some of the video, and you can get to some of these links. It's over. We were actually pulling together all of our end-user computing blogs eventually, and so the start is over there at blogs.vmware.com/EUC, and you'll see some of the latest Horizon news.
Oh, nifty. Very nifty. So last week also VMware vCenter Operations Standard 1.0 won the Best of Interop Award in the Cloud Computing and Virtualization category, and VMware View Client for iPad took the Wireless and Mobility category at Interop. Also last week, we opened the community moderator elections on VMTN forums. We elect moderators twice a year for 6-month terms, and the voting will continue through the end of the month. So if you want to nominate someone or yourself, you can go to the VMTN blog at blogs.vmware.com/VMTN. VMware is at the SAP Sapphire Now conference today, and we're having a drawing for a Blue Lounge refresh charging station in the 4 p.m. session about virtualizing SAP in production. And this is a real customer story with Paul O'Neill, IT system manager at Mazda. And I kind of wish I could be there today because I'm, a known Mazda fangirl. They make great competition cars, Mazda people. Love my Mazda.
You get your checks in the mail, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
From our latest sponsor,
money, here
Mazda.
I come.
We should start taking kickbacks. I'm sure that
yes,
there's enough money sloshing around in EMC and NetApps and IBM's and HP's coffers that.
Well, I'm glad we thought about that. I'm going to write an email to Mazda today. Today is also the last day to vote on VMworld sessions. We have dozens of sessions for you to vote on, and of course they're at VMworld.com as every year. And looking forward, the world of virtualization will continue to excite and thrill us over the next days and weeks. So tonight I'm flying to Anaheim. That's the really exciting bit. I'll be covering the VMware Forum. Follow me at VMware Community on Twitter. If you can't make it to Anaheim in person, you can still join the tomorrow's forum event online as well. And this information is all available on the VMware Forum webpage, which is linked smack dab from the VMware.com homepage. It's on the lower left in the gray box. More VMware Forums events are taking place this month in Edinburgh, Milan, Manchester, Zurich, Mexico City, Moscow, and Budapest. We also have a webinar today on virtualizing Microsoft and Oracle in VMware vSphere, benefits and best practices. Next week, on the 24th of May, we offer the series part 2 of VMware vCloud Director Quick Start, Architecting a Cloud. And the following day, you can learn when Java EE is overkill, lightweight application server use cases. That's all webcasts. And on the same day, we got a Spanish language webinar on controlling physical and virtual infrastructure with help of vCenter Configuration Manager. All of the webcasts, these and all the future ones, you can find on webcasts.vmware.com. And there's a number of full-day regional VMUG conferences happening over the next couple of weeks, starting with Palo Alto and Silicon Valley today, Farmington, Connecticut tomorrow, and finally Western Pennsylvania on the 7th of June. Additionally, the following VMUGs are meeting over the next 7 days: Warsaw, Hamburg, Las Vegas, Minneapolis, Maryland, Toledo, Little Rock, and 2 Tasmanian VMUGs in Hobart and Launceston. You can find more details and registration links for all the VMUG meetings at myvmug.org and click there on events. And this is all the news I got for the week. John, take it away.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. So did everybody put in their VMworld votes? It's a huge list this year, but it's definitely valuable. Stick your 2 cents in the machine.
I hadn't heard anything about it.
You have not, because you were on the first round of voting.
No, I was being sarcastic.
I know you were being sarcastic. Because you were part of the content committee.
I worked very, very hard on the first round.
Did you cut out? So Jace, this is Jason Bokey, by the way. Jace, did you end up cutting out a lot of submissions to get in the first review round to get to the public voting?
We don't, in that first round, we're not doing cutting out. We're just merely voting, which is what's going on in the second round. I don't know how the cutout process works or how they determine what goes in the first or the second round and what doesn't. So
Right.
we just vote on, give it a 1 through 5 and then type up some notes on each session.
There's a huge number this year.
There
I
is.
love it.
Is the session list, is that all the sessions, or is that some that are there some that have been pre-approved already?
I'm sorry, was that question to me?
Anyone who can answer it.
Can you restate the question, please?
Yeah, I was just wondering that the session list that's gone to public voting, is that all of the sessions, or is that the sessions minus the ones that have been already put through?
It's from what I can tell, it's a shorter list.
Oh, okay.
In fact, one of the sessions that I was on, I had 2 sessions. One of them I know made it to public voting, but I didn't see the second one. So even one of my own, I think, is out.
And so I do know that I know there's some secret sessions that can't be talked about, so they're not up for public voting. So I'm not sure what the state is. I know they take it's a multifactorial thing by the end as they try to figure it out. I think it's a great system. I mean, maybe it's breaking down with too many because many people are putting in, many submissions. If you look at Chad Sakich did a post yesterday on all the EMC submissions or the other week. And there's 100 and some, and many people have put in 5 or 10, which makes sense, and I think we'll end up with a better conference. But for somebody, a normal person trying to just go in and vote for some sessions, and
it makes it that much harder to judge. I mean, if you're put in front of 1,200 sessions, and they all, for the most part, they all look really good. How do you narrow that down to 200? I mean, it becomes. I mean, there's only a few that are just obvious throwouts, but the rest, I mean,
the rest could be good.
I mean, I counted on my track. I used a find or a search function in my browser to find the number of occurrences with the word cloud, and out of, I think there was like 97 occurrences. One title even had the word cloud twice, and so how do you pick, which 2 or 3 or 4 sessions, cloud sessions should be in, and which of the 90 do you throw out? I don't know.
Well, maybe the system, I mean, it's a good problem to have that there's that much interest, but maybe the system needs to be rejiggered again for next year. But, that's such is life, I guess.
Hey, one thing I wanted to add in there, if you don't mind real quick, is that there's a lot of I think there were 3 or 4 of the storage panels that were submitted this year that showed up on the first round of voting, and what I'm scared of is that I don't want to see the voting get spread out over all 3, ultimately where none of them would end up getting selected. So I know that here at NetApp we were trying to guide people to do that all of this came off the back of the success of the storage super heavyweights last year. So if we can focus our voting just as a community on that one and recommit to doing that one again, because it was a very good session. But we're scared that having 3 or 4 of the exact same thing would deter from maybe any of them getting selected. So
that should make sense. But keep in mind, the good news is a human being or many human beings look at these afterwards. So it's not like they just tally up the votes and push the button. So I'm assuming and every track has an owner, there's several owners. So I'm assuming that somebody will catch that on that rear end to see that there's a lot of interest in a storage panel. So let's pick one. It's hard. I mean, we need to get moving here, but it's VMworld. It's hard. I talked with them about panels. I mean, industry panels are great. If you have too many of them, and we've all been to conferences that's just panel after panel after panel, and they're not prepared, and it's just kind of like people. It's like the conference equivalent of Twitter. Everybody's just talking about what's on their mind, and it's good kind of as an industry overview, but it's not really what VMworld is about. So I love the panels, and I think we should have panels. I just think they need to be structured right, and I think it's hard. The way we're doing the voting, where everything's equal, and then I don't know. It just seems like a mismatch a little bit. I almost wish VMware would pull together the industry panels themselves, but I don't know. Not my thing. Not my job. So good. Everybody go vote. I think it closes. Does it close at end of business today, or does it close at midnight? I don't know. Nobody knows. Just go vote. Maish asks, are we putting Twitter handles on the badges? And the answer is yes, we got it in. So when you do register, there is a place to put your Twitter handle, and we double-check then. The vendors, when your badge gets scanned, the vendors will not get your Twitter handle. So you will not get any Twitter spam as a result of this. So I'm very pleased we put it in. And I think the plan was also to have that each session that gets accepted will have a hashtag, so that you can, and it will be listed in the program, so that you can discuss the session before you're going, during it, and afterwards. And in fact, and part of this idea came from Tony, who was at South by Southwest, and he said a couple times he was in a session, live tweeting the session, but also at the same time on his laptop he was following 2 other sessions because people were live tweeting that session, and it was all possible because they all had explicit hashtags. Anyway, so I think it'll be cool. Well, let's move on with the rest of our show. So Steve Jin is with us. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Really pleased to have you on, Steve. So Steve, why don't you describe these days what you're working on? Go ahead and describe what you're working on in your day job, and then let's talk a little bit about the API, your book, and the APIs you've worked on some of your side projects. And then finally, let's get to the meetup. But let's maybe just start with who you are and what you do here at VMware.
Yeah, I joined VMware 4 years ago, and I worked with a lot of strategic partners and customers. In 2009, I am the one actually help on the keynote demo, see the cloudfoundry.com demo we had before. So basically, that's through acquisition from SpringSource. That one works with EC2, and then we want to demo that with VMware stuff. So I was the one work on the keynote demo. And then last year I joined another organization as a professional services development lab. So I'm here developing tools for our consultants and consulting partners to accelerate service delivery.
So specifically on the cloud side or in PSO in general?
PSO in general.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and tell us a little bit about now the API and also your book.
Yeah, the API is my passion because before I worked at IBM Rational for a long time, so I had a passion for software architecture, software SDK, API, those kind of work. So when I joined VMware 4 years ago, I realized our official API, the web service layer, is not easy to use. That's why I started work on the open source project, and it addressed 2 major issues. One is to create an object model so that you can use the objects in the object-oriented programming like Java. And secondly, it's about performance. In version 2, we actually start working on a new web service engine. So now the API works without Apache access. In summary, yeah, the API is about 2 things: ease of use and performance.
Cool. And so this actually turned it, and it didn't turn into an official API from VMware, but you open sourced it, and actually it seems to be quite popular. It's gotten a lot of use out in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been downloaded for more than 14,000 times. We also have a 2,000 plus code sync directly from our code repository. So it's pretty dominant in the VMware community those days. You're right, this is not an official product from VMware. We have a pretty good community around this. The support is through the open source community forum. And
so cool. So check it out if folks everybody should know about it. It's been out there for a while. So what's going on with this meetup tonight? I'm going to try to make it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So the open source community, the project was created 3 years ago in May 2008. That's the first day we released that stuff after our legal approval from the corporate. Now it's about 3 years. So we have a pretty strong community around this, but we never has such a meetup, so bring people together face to face. So this year I was thinking, well, it's about time. So that's why I threw the idea in my blog, and a lot of people respond very positively. So I worked on the funding, also other stuff. So we finally put off would like to thank VMware as our sponsor, also as well as EMC.
Cool. And so that'll be tonight. Now it's also streaming live on the web, right?
Yes. So if you go check my blog site at doublecloud.org, and I post the article today, so you will see the live streaming URL on my blog.
Cool. Is Luke coming to do that?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Luke Kilpatrick, our colleague, has come to do that. That's great. So
yeah.
It should be kind of interesting. What kinds of things? Well, actually, there's a huge number of. It's not just Meet Steve. You actually have a great. You have 8 tech talks tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So originally we think it's more about the VIA Java API itself. Later on, we decide, okay, so we should broaden the audience to bring the value to bigger audience. So then I invite a few tech talks from the community. For example, we have Boris Stroingen from High Trust to talk about the secure multi-tenancy in the cloud. Elsa from Juniper Network talk about automating security in the dynamic virtual environments. Gridha from Cisco, that's from acquisition NewScale. He will talk about massive virtual machine provisioning in the cloud. And we also have Steve Wang from EMC talk about accessing vSphere API from C++. Of course, William Lam, he's the
our own W. Lam, yeah.
Yeah, so he's the expert and our community champion. He will talk about we got a open source project that's based on the Perl. We also have Dave, who is an independent consultant working at VMware, talking about using VIA Java API from Scala. So there are a lot of tech talks lined up. So join us if you can.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, along and around the corner, of course, is the VMUG. If you're listening to this and you happen to be in Silicon Valley, you still have a couple hours of VMUG left. There on El Camino. And if you're at the VMUG and for somehow telepathically receiving this podcast today, come on to the meetup. I'm particularly interested in the NewScale guy. The Cisco Intelligent Automation. I think NewScale is really interesting I just think service catalogs are a place where we could many IT shops. Yeah, that's going to be one thing, a visible part of the structural change that's going to happen as you become more automated and do more IT as a service. I think learning more about service catalogs and how to present them to your end users and your business owners, and then what it has to happen behind a service catalog in terms of provisioning is pretty interesting, which is also a reason why I think Horizon is very interesting.
Yes.
We'll get them in soon. And the secure multi-tenancy also sounds really cool because, again, I'm really interested in what happens to IT in the future. I'm really interested in what happens to infrastructure guys in the future because the dev guys are like, well, we're going to be in control when it's a cloud. But at some level, somebody's still got to architect the back end. And one of your jobs is going to be to make sure like secure multi-tenancy actually works.
Yeah, absolutely, John. I think you're right. The job won't go away. Just go to the service provider.
Yeah. Well, or if you're in-house, you've got to be able to understand. It's a whole different topic, right? If you're in-house, there's a whole different set of things you have to understand, and you have to understand what the service provider is doing as far as service multi-tenancy, bandwidth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
So we're here on doublecloud.org. We talked about a little bit. What do you cover in your blog, Steve? And what are some of the topics? What are some of the topics that you talk about? And how do you find time to do all the blogging?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually cover two major different areas. One is the cloud computing. The other is the virtualization management APIs. The cloud computing side, the most popular one I have wrote is the cloud architecture patterns, which has about 12 design patterns on a cloud architecture so far. So it's being actually introduced on infoq.com. Therefore, I got a lot of traffic over there. The other area is virtualization APIs, mainly about the vSphere API. which is my expertise. I have been working on that for a long time, and also wrote a book about it, which was published in 2009 by Prentice Hall. And now, so how to find a time? This is a good question. I actually work a lot after hours. That's something I'm passionate about. So once you have something passionate about, you will have time.
I think that's unfortunately, I think that's about as simple and as complicated as it gets. I wish there was a magic secret. So Steve, let's talk about these design patterns. Let's maybe dive into one. Do you have one that you like that would be kind of easy to explain on the internet radios to folks? Because everybody here is involved in some way in design and architecting and operating virtual infrastructure. So maybe talk about what you see as cloud pattern architectures and pattern languages are really interesting. Some developers have really gotten into them. Sometimes you look at them and go, well, that's kind of obvious, but it's still useful to have kind of a formal description so that we at least have a formal language to talk about how things are connected and how things are set up. So maybe just talk about one of your patterns.
Okay, so the design pattern idea is being where it got popular about the book by the Gang of Four, the design patterns, right? After that, a lot of engineers in our field talk about the idea how to reuse the previous architecture in our current projects. And so when I look at the cloud computing in those days, I just borrowed that idea and apply in the cloud architecture. So the basic format of each pattern is we have the pattern name, and then have the structure, and then those kind of things. So and what kind of problem it address, and what kind of consequences, and of course, what's the non-uses of that pattern. One particular so in all the patterns I created, have three different categories. One is the creational patterns. It's about how the provision in the cloud, and we have a virtual machine factory, we have a VM template, we have a VM pooling. And the second category is the structural patterns. We have, for example, VM pipeline, we have a cloud blocker, or we have a Fachet VM. That's the second one. So how you describe the virtual machines, how they structure and link together in the cloud. And the third one is the behavior patterns. We have, for example, stateless virtual machine, spectral centralization, app VM, and service VM, etc. This is about how each virtual machine in the cloud, how they behave. One particular pattern we can talk about is the stateless VM virtual machine. Basically, the idea is the virtual machine does not carry any permanent state. So when it's a provision, it can just boot up and get information from other data store. This actually allows the provisioning much easier and much faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So some of the things, you're capturing some of the things that people may be doing already, but trying to present them a little more of a formal framework.
Exactly. So I'm not inventor of all those things. I just try to summarize some of those existing usages in a few.
Awesome. Yeah, people should check them out. I'm looking at, the Facade VM, which is a VM that is the single point of contact for a bigger VM, a bigger set of vApps and VMs behind it. Yeah. Which is something you might set up naturally, but if we can start to talk about these patterns in a more formal way, we start to realize it helps, we can develop the trade-offs of this architecture, some of the things you need to be concerned about, some of the things that this kind of architecture implies, et cetera. So definitely check it out. So check it out at doublecloud.org. And so let's see. Well, Steve, I'm going to thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate you dropping by. You've done a lot of great work, and I'm glad to see that the projects that you've worked on are starting to have gotten some traction. I'm really looking forward to the event tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. Likewise. So everybody check out doublecloud.org. If you're definitely in need of some Java bindings to the vSphere SDK and APIs, check that out as well.
Yes.
Great. We also have with us today Alan Renouf. Alan, are you there?
I am.
Hey, welcome to the show, and welcome to VMware. You're
Thank you very much, sir.
You're a brand new employee.
I am, yes. 2 weeks in. Yeah.
So, remember that we actually do have a few thousand listeners. But any particular differences that you came over to us from EMC?
I did, yeah.
And so welcome. Any particular your first 3-week observations about how onboarding was? Well, and then you were in the vSpecialist team, which has a very specific and very cool onboarding scheme. Actually, I'm jealous. Actually, so I'm guessing that it was a little more loosey-goosey when you came over to be part of the tech marketing team here at VMware.
Yeah, it's been pretty good so far. I'm still finding my feet at the moment, but yeah, certainly different to EMC. I'm still waiting for my bowling shirt. I'm not sure if you guys do them.
Your bowling shirt? No.
Yeah.
We just get, we'll. I've got a mouse pad somewhere. I can get you.
Yeah.
So talk about your new role here at VMware and what you're going to be working on.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm 2 weeks in, so I'm still finding that out myself. But basically, it seems to be anything Power CLI seems to be coming my way at the moment. So I'm part of the technical marketing team with a specific focus on Power CLI and automation.
Well,
so,
and so will Power CLI be my expectation would be that your area of coverage would be a little bit wider than just Power CLI.
Yeah, I don't know at the moment, to be honest with you. So it's definitely it definitely includes Power CLI, but as we move forward, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We've got VMware got loads of great products to automate Virtual Center and vCloud Director. So moving forward, who knows? Yeah,
and we keep coming back to Power CLI is Windows only, so that's a challenge in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
So Alan, definitely pleased to have you on board. It'd be interesting. I'm interested. Again, you're just 3 weeks in, but I'm curious how your perception of Power CLI is funny, right? It's an extremely useful tool, and the folks, and you and Luke especially, are known as kind of the community leaders of the magic tricks you can do with it. Had a really powerful session at VMworld last year. Extremely popular. Had to be repeated. There's some perception, both inside and maybe outside and maybe inside VMware, that Power CLI is popular, but somehow not appreciated. Which is funny because we've got some orchestrator guys on here today too. Orchestrator is also known as something that's powerful and not necessarily appreciated as well as it could be. So I'm kind of curious. Coming from the outside, now you're on the inside. You are the technical communicator around PowerShell and automation, for the vSphere unit, which is our $2-3 billion business here. What do you hope to? I'm kind of curious. What in your head? What are you hoping to? What's your dream projects? What do you want to get done over the next year or so?
Well, I think it's worth just sort of talking about Power CLI a little bit before I get into that as well, because
sure.
Not everybody uses Power CLI nowadays, and not everybody understands what Power CLI is for. Because one of the things that I saw from the outside, not working for VMware, is that VMware do have some great products and they have some great ways to automate it, but it's a little unclear as to which one you should use and which way you should go, where you should get started, that kind of stuff. So I guess the first place I want to start is just trying to clarify that message. I see that kind of as a little bit as part of my role at VMware, is to try and tell people about the products that we've got and not hide them away, and make sure that people know what they're for. And if you're a system administrator, where should you start? And if you're a developer, where should you start? Because like today's show, you've been talking about APIs and Java and things like that, but to the system administrators, they're kind of, that doesn't really mean anything to them. They just know that Java is this thing that they have to install on their machine to get stuff running that always crashes. Mm-hmm. it's worth, I think, emphasizing the message from the VMware side as to where people should start. And I think the great thing about PowerCLI is that it's kind of a subset away from things like Java and SDKs and APIs and stuff like that. You don't need to fully understand these kind of things to use PowerCLI. At the end of the day, PowerShell was written for system administrators. Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about a different breed of people here. They want to get stuff done, and they want to get it done now. And they want it as easy as possible. So I think, with PowerCLI, we're kind of addressing a different audience than the guys that would normally delve straight into SDKs and APIs and stuff like that.
I think that's an important distinction to make. I think that both, affects your ease of entry, but then on the backside may affect. We've talked about this as well in past podcasts. May affect your maintainability and robust operational enterprisiness of the solution that you come up with.
Sure.
I mean, there might be so PowerShell is easy to get going, especially if you use Windows at all. The bindings are amazingly perfect for the domain that we work in of a sysadmin, but at the end
exactly.
it's still script. It's still just kind of a script.
Yeah, and I think PowerShell isn't going anywhere. At the end of the day, a lot of the virtual machines that people manage are still Windows based. So I know a lot of people don't like Windows, but they're not going anywhere. Windows isn't going anywhere. And Microsoft has got this thing called the Common Framework Criteria, which basically means that anything that comes out of Microsoft sort of back office has to have PowerShell built into it. So you have to have an interface for PowerShell and PowerShell commandlets. So if you start thinking about that, then PowerShell really does become the glue that kind of holds your Windows data center together and allows you to link in between things and write scripts that don't have to stop at one place. I've got scripts that will look at your virtual infrastructure, see who created a snapshot, look up their account in AD, find out their email address, and send them an email saying, "Excuse me, you've still got a snapshot on your virtual machine." So it's all about taking it outside the box, and I hate that saying, but
right,
you can understand what I mean.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges is getting a common set of hooks or a common way of addressing all of our different products. I mean, that's always I guess that's always a technical debt challenge for most companies, since not everything speaks PowerShell or has a set of PowerShell bindings yet.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got with Thomas on the line. He had an interesting point. Thomas works a lot with automation and with and both with sysadmins and with APIs and GUIs. He had an interesting observation about levels of kind of sophistication and use cases. I'm kind of curious to see if he would expand on that, and maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit. Thomas, are you there?
Sure, I'm here.
Can you unmute? You had kind of an interesting but cryptic comment on chat. I was wondering if you could expand on that, and and Alan, I'm wondering if see what you think about what Thomas was just saying.
Oh, Thomas is in Kicks, right?
Yeah, you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, what I tend to find is there's kind of three levels of people, and it kind of goes to something Mike Foley was saying too. There's kind of the scripter guys. They do things very quickly, agile. I need a fix now, or I need to solve a problem, and I don't want to come up with something too complicated. And I'm not an SDK guy, right? So they write a script, and it worked, and it's good. But if that guy gets hit by the bus, then I'm kind of in trouble. The second level is kind of the opposite end, which is the SDK programs. They're really good. They're going through the SDK. It's usually a little bit more scale because you're not scripting. You're going right to the same SDK that script is probably calling. And what's kind of missing is kind of that middleware thing where you can take somebody like a scripter and give them like the orchestrator and say, okay, here's something that has direct access to the SDKs that gives you the same sort of ease of use of the scripting, but with all the power of the SDK that you don't have because they're not a programmer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But PowerShell does have its kind of backdoors into the SDK, if you like, to allow you to do stuff. that little bit faster. So, and I agree with you. Power CLI is for the system administrators and for getting things done as soon as you can. And the fact that it's got cool integrations means that you can do cool stuff with it. There are always going to be two sets of people. There's going to be the beardy, sandal-wearing type developers, and then the system administrators with their hairs on fire. Need to get something done straight away.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, I use it almost every day in various things for what I'm doing with customers or just, in my own environment.
It'll be interesting, Alan, to see what tech marketing is an interesting role, right? You produce, sometimes people just think, well, they just sit around writing white papers or making videos or something, which is a piece of what everybody does. But you actually get called in to do a lot of SE training and sales training and partner training, and then get called into customer pre- and post-sales customer visits as well. You get pulled in a lot of directions, from my understanding. I'm curious, have you started? I know you just started. Do you anticipate? Have there been any surprises so far? Since you are I think I can safely say a Power CLI expert. You've hit the ground running. Have you been pulled in a couple different directions already?
Yeah, well, I'm being asked to do those kind of things. So yeah, you're right. It isn't just about writing white papers. It is about going to see the customers and speaking at events and doing all kinds of stuff really, just to sort of enable people to be able to use our products. And yes, I am being pulled into customers to talk to customers about things and talk to SEs, and yeah, it's kind of the full spectrum of things really.
So the sales guy will say, yeah, of course you can do that. You can do anything with Power CLI, and then you actually have to come in and
and prove him right.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, but the thing I tell people all the time is that Power CLI isn't for everybody. Just because I think it's great, it isn't the greatest tool for everybody. You've got people like William Lamb that probably wouldn't even touch Power CLI. And that's the great thing about VMware, is that they've got so many tools that you can use to do the automation. So why not take advantage of those and use what you're used to? There's no point in sending Power CLI to a Linux guy. Although I have had a Linux guy walk out with a Power CLI sticker on his laptop before. But what I'm saying is, use the tools that are there and use the tools that you're used to. It's just about getting the job done, really, isn't it?
Yeah, right tool for the right job too.
Absolutely.
Which is often the tool you're familiar with. So as we all are aware, there will be new versions of vSphere coming out in the future. We haven't stopped working on vSphere. Do you anticipate changes in how we will? I mean, there might be new commandlets and things like that, but are people going to be working with vSphere Power CLI differently in the future?
I think the team are just going to do. So there's going to be a couple of areas. So you've got the sort of general making Power CLI faster as the team learn what people use it for and what they do with it. There's going to be if the next version of vSphere comes out with newer features, then there's going to be coverage of those newer features, I would guess. And I can't see Power CLI going away from VMware at all. They've done a really good job of it. The fact that we had the creator of PowerShell itself, Jeffrey Snover, in the Power CLI session at VMworld last year is kind of a big message in itself. And I got to speak to him afterwards and said, what is the guy that created PowerShell, a guy fully embedded into Microsoft, what's he doing here, watching me talk about VMware and Luke talk about VMware and Power CLI? And he said that, even over at Microsoft, they've heard about the buzz, and this is the second largest community outside of Microsoft and the second largest company using PowerShell, and they wanted to find out what we were using it for and what we were doing with it. So it's a great story.
It's interesting the way that I wouldn't have thought. I mean, now that you say it, I guess that makes sense. That the VMware community is the largest one outside of Microsoft. I guess that makes sense, but that surprises me. That's cool. In terms on our, and then on our side, are there new? Can we expect to see some new functionality or new commandlets or verbs or things like that coming out?
I couldn't possibly say what was going to happen in the future, John.
You're allowed to talk. You're allowed to hint about future technologies, but as long as you don't connect them to a specific version. I'm just guessing. Do you feel like we have a complete coverage now of what we need, or do you see some holes?
Well, I mean, the great thing about the Power CLI team and what they did was they try and cover pretty much everything that the system administrators would want to do. So we've probably got 70-80% coverage using Power CLI commandlets, but for that little bit that isn't covered, they kind of give you this backdoor that I was talking about earlier, which is the get view commandlet. And what that actually allows you to do is kind of go into the SDK and get that little bit further in, and actually be able to do the bits that 90% of people wouldn't want to do. So they've done an absolutely fantastic job, and I can only see that getting better as things go on. Cool.
So we probably should wrap it up here. We're getting towards the end of our hour. And let's see. So you guys, I saw you and Luke have a session at VMworld again. Yeah, we got a couple of sessions this year. They're in the public vote at the moment, so seeing as it's still public vote time, please go and vote for me. Well, good. They were big favorites last year, so I'm sure you'll be there again.
Yeah, John, this is Steve.
Yeah.
One thing to add, for the VMworld, if you submit your proposal to the Technology Exchange, and that won't be show up for public voting this time. That's what I heard from our colleagues.
Okay, so are we still running, Steve? Do you still know? Are we running a separate track? Is that a separate track this year, or do you know how we're doing Technology Exchange?
I think the track is still separate, but I don't know from the registration aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Does anybody else know? I can find out.
Okay.
That's good to know. And Steve, do you have some sessions in at VMworld as well?
Yeah, I have one session submitted for Technology Exchange. It's about the interoperability among VMware APIs. Basically, we have so many APIs. What if, for example, in the view, you get some information from view, how are you going to dig into the vSphere? Because view actually run on top of vSphere. So how you are going to navigate through those APIs, something I'm going to talk about.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah, so for folks that don't know, Pablo kind of snuck this in a couple of years ago, which was he felt that like the developer-y kinds of things, like talking about APIs and SDKs, not Power CLI necessarily, but writing tools on top of VMware with the APIs that we provide, weren't getting enough attention. So he kind of slipped in the main conference. So he kind of slipped in this secondary conference, which overlapped or kind of subsumed or was subsumed by the partner exchange, the technology track of the partner exchange co-event that was going on at the same time. So he took an event that was originally for TAP partners, originally for vendors and other people that write tools to VMware in our Technology Alliance program, and he turned it into a public event for all vSphere developers, because not all vSphere developers are in software companies. A lot of them are sitting, in end user customers or in consultancies or things like that. Turned it into an event, but then it had to be a side event, and you had to register for it separately, and it was kind of hard to figure out how the two events interrelated, and they had different schedules. And even last year, I think you had to pay for it separately. So this year, it sounds like finally there's no NDA. There might be a few NDA ones that you can't get into, but there's really no NDA information there. So finally, it's part of the event, but it sounds like the schedule is not co-aligned, or maybe the schedule is aligned, but the content selection is done completely differently.
Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. So from the price-wise, last year, even though that's a separate event, but very competitive price.
Cool. Okay. So, well, good. So hopefully it's a little easier to find and get to this year. It's definitely worth going to if you need to do that for your job. Well, we probably should wrap up here, and and get moving. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the VMUG, but I'm definitely going to come down for the meetup tonight. So, Steve, why don't you tell us the name of your book again, just so if folks are interested in finding it?
It's called VMware VI and a vSphere SDK. It's available on Amazon right now. If you go to my blog, you can, on the right side pane, you can find a link.
Awesome. And you on Twitter, you are SJIN2008 on Twitter, and
Exactly.
doublecloud.org is your blog.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank
and
you.
Alan, you have a book out as well.
I do, yes.
Tell us about that just real briefly.
Yeah, sure. It's based around Power CLI, and we kind of took the approach of the general system administrator and what he would want to get out of the virtual infrastructure and automate using Power CLI. So the book is called VMware vSphere Power CLI Reference, and you can find out about it if you go to powerclibook.com.
Awesome. On chat, we learned that we do need a Kindle version of that, by the way. And
they're working on the Kindle version at the moment. There was an issue with the code in it, so it's coming back. Stay tuned.
Awesome. And your technical editor says that your technical editor was awesome. So Stu just wants everybody to know that.
The technical editor was absolutely awesome.
Hey, if you guys don't know, we said something about the VMware Press before, and I don't know if they've launched or not. We had trouble launching their site. Who knows what's going on. But we are launching a new VMware Press with one of the publishing companies, Pearson maybe? I don't know. You guys can correct me. So we're actually going to bring out books that are branded VMware Press, and presumably they will get good visibility, and we will help you. I have no idea what the business arrangements are. If you make more or less, I mean, God knows you don't write a tech book for the money. But just keep you guys. Well, still buy the book. Every little book adds a couple pennies to Alan's
retirement
fund.
fund.
Yeah, retirement fund. But anyway, so check that. Keep your eyes open for that. I think the book's already in the hopper. Mike Laverick is doing one. Cody Bunch is doing one, and there's a third one from somebody at VMware. I forget. He's in support. He's been here forever. He's a VCDX. Mustafa's doing one. Mustafa Khalil's doing one, who's awesome. So,
hey, John, one last thing.
Yeah.
Tonight's meetup, we actually will give away several copies of my book and Alan's book as well.
Oh, definitely worth showing up. I think, now, can people just show up at the door?
Yeah, so you can still drop in, but the registration is already closed.
Okay, we have over 300 people at least, last I heard. So it should be fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be in our business, guys. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, I mean, I have no idea. There were 1,200 people at the VMUG last week. I have no idea how many people are at the VMUG today in your local VMUG. It's definitely worth checking stuff out. Okay, folks, we're going to call it a day. We'll see if we can get VCDX001 and crew, Duncan, and maybe Steve Kaplan, and I think the other person in town maybe is Ben Lin on next week, but I don't guarantee it. But so you should just dial in just to make sure. Awesome, guys. Get back to work. Thanks again for a great show.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.